Hey everyone, this is Steve from GamersNexus.net, and we are back from PAX East. This is the first video back, and for this one we're doing Saturday Heat Signature, which of course focuses down on a single upcoming game or project and brings it to your attention. So for this one, we are talking about a Kickstarter project called Planet Explorers by Pathia Games, and this game's got a huge scope. But at its heart, it's an open-world sandbox/exploration game centered around user-generated content and survival. And it's a sci-fi game. It's in space. Really, in short, you were on a colony ship traveling to a new planet. It crashed. It landed on a strange planet, and it's up to you to survive the first night, establish a camp, and keep the remaining few NPCs alive via recruitment channels, which we'll talk about in a moment. You have to scrounge up resources like food, weapons, shelter, all sorts of stuff, and basically just stay alive and expand your colony. So players will be able to enter the a creation mode. I just mentioned weapons and shelter. You're able to enter a creation mode to construct those, and just about any other really vehicle, structure, weapon, mech, all kinds of stuff that you want to create. And the game uses non-cuboid voxels for its terrain and object generation. So when I say voxel a couple times through this video, it doesn't mean voxel like Minecraft's terrain or like, I don't know, Cube World. It's just, instead of vertices, we're using voxels, and that is really the end of that. So it does allow on-the-fly and point-by-point terrain and object manipulation and generation. So as with most voxel games, you've got a lot of creativity and control thereof. So there's a lot to explain here. I'm going to break it down into consumable parts, and we will start with the game modes and then dive into each mode independently. The developers have currently targeted the inclusion of 3 primary single-player modes and a couple of multiplayer modes. And on the single-player front, we've got promises of an expansive, unique story mode with a custom world, custom accompanying handwritten adventure path, all that stuff, complete with conclusion even. There is an end to the game, and various RPG elements along the way. There's also promise of an adventure mode which aims to focus on procedurally generated alternatives to the story world and allow for more freeform play. And in this, random missions will be available for the players, like tower defense-esque events and assault missions, stuff like that. And then the final planned single-player mode is Build Mode, which, as the name suggests, is really just for sandbox construction, just like Minecraft's Creative Mode. And I really hate to keep using Minecraft here as comparison, but a lot of people are familiar with it, so I apologize if that annoys you. No enemies will be present in the build mode, and infinite building materials will be available. So it's just a sandbox to test what you want to do. Creations editors will be available to construct new vehicles, weapons, and so forth. Now, multiplayer will offer mode archetypes in the form of co-op and competitive play, each of which have numerous subtypes that I won't get into very deeply because, honestly, I'm not too sure. I believe that the developers will be able to fully implement the promised Dota-like modes, tower defense mode, capture the flag, and base defense subtypes. No offense to them, I am sure they are fantastically skilled, far more than I am. It just seems like a massive scope, and I don't want to dive too deeply into that right now. So regardless, at the center of everything is survival and construction. It's your job to set up a base camp and eventually expand into a colony, and whether that's in story or adventure mode or other modes, the world is complete with caves, mountains, volcanoes, wastelands, and all manner of other biomes, each with unique enemies to really flesh out the planet and make it feel strange and alive and alien. Story mode uses a unique continent that's been handcrafted by the developers and will have a clear arc to follow in terms of story, but adventure mode, in the style of other recent voxel games like Cube World and Castle Story, will randomly generate terrain and resources to create new experiences with each playthrough. So that's the gist of those. Players will be able to farm, herd, hunt, and fish for food resources, which are then distributed amongst NPCs if you have any, to keep them alive, to keep yourself alive, and players are also able to gather resources with traditional pathways like mining. I would imagine other forms, perhaps wood cutting or something like that, and use those gathered resources in construction of bases or technology. And once you've constructed a base settlement, you'll be able to recruit NPCs and upgrade buildings to effectively establish a fully functional town. The capabilities of the NPCs are not yet clear. We don't know if they'll be shopkeepers or just kind of there, like testificates. But the developers have suggested that a fully diplomatic pathway to conflict resolution is possible when enemies arise, and enemies will try to assault your town, try to kill the NPCs, stuff like that. So you will be able to have a fully diplomatic pathway. If you want to be like, I don't know, say Captain Picard, you could do that, but war is always another option. And we haven't even gotten into multiplayer yet, and it's been almost 6 minutes, though it's mostly just more of the same from what I've read, and except with more players. And again, to make the Minecraft comparison strictly in terms of playstyle, Planet Explorers has a lot of similarities, just with a few key, huge differences, like a focus on exploration and more interesting combat and enemies. So you've got a lot more action-driven play with the capability, the supplement of building towns and all that other stuff, tech. I want to make a quick note that this is a Kickstarter project, and the developers have made tons of promises that they may or may not be able to deliver on. More money doesn't necessarily mean more skill or a more refined game, yada yada. You know the pitch. If you want to donate, please do so wisely and research the game thoroughly. Hopefully this video has given you something to look forward to, though. The game does look seriously cool, and it has a lot of potential, and really at this point, it's just a matter of whether the developers are able to deliver and keep the scope under control to prevent another Spore. And with that, I don't want to leave on a cold, bitter note. Seriously, take a look at the game. It's called Planet Explorers by Pathia. I will have a link in the description below, along with a full article that basically summarizes this video. So with that, I will see you all next time. Peace.